Hey everyone, welcome into the Fantasy Pros YouTube channel. I'm Bobby Sylvester, the Fantasy Pros football podcast. We're going to be talking Week 13 starter sit. We're doing it a little bit early since we've got 3 Thanksgiving games today and then Sunday matchups as well. I've actually already got my Week 13 rankings out. They came out this morning. My quick grades article is actually already out too, 2 days early, so you can look at both of those. If you've got extra questions, hopefully I'll be able to get to a lot of them here on the live stream today. Just start writing them now. The sooner you write them, the more likely I am to be able to get to them. But if you have more questions, as always, you can refer to my rankings. I'm going to pin it to the top of my Twitter at BobbyFantasyPro, and my quick grades will help with that as well. I'm just going to cruise through my rankings here really quick. We're going to get to some Q&A, and I'm also going to tell you guys my favorite Thanksgiving DFS plays. Let's just start at the we'll start at the running back position here. You'll see over on the right side, I've got Bo Scarborough, Darius Geis starts, Carlos Hyde as sits. We'll get to those guys in a moment, but first, I've got Miles Sanders as an absolute must-play this week. He's my RB13. To put that into perspective, he's RB21 in ECR. ECR is the expert consensus ranking, so across the industry, all the experts combined to rank Miles Sanders as their RB21. So a strong start, but I've got him as a must-start against Miami, assuming that Jordan Howard is out. Some other guys in that range here, I've got Joe Mixon, even against the Jets. Mark Ingram, even against San Francisco. I've got lots of questions about those guys. Todd Gurley had a bad game. Yeah, I'm still starting him against Arizona. Good matchup. Chris Carson, I've been getting a ton of questions about as well. He fumbled, got taken out. It was the Rashad Penny show. I think they're going back to Chris Carson this week. The rest of the industry seems to agree. They've got him at RB17. I've got him at RB18 this week, so he's a strong start for me. Ronald Jones against Jacksonville. This is turning out to be a great matchup for fantasy football running backs, and Ronald Jones has been getting the bulk of the workload. Now, granted, there's always going to be Peyton Barber mixed in there. It's not like Ronald Jones is a bell cow back, but if he gets 15 touches like he did last week against this Jacksonville defense, yeah, he's going to be start worthy. David Montgomery, same kind of thing. He's getting a lot of touches, but he hasn't been very good. Last 3 weeks, 6 fantasy points, 5, 3. I'm definitely playing him against Detroit, though. We're talking about someone who's likely going to get 18 to 20 carries for Chicago against Detroit's horrible run defense. So David Montgomery for me is RB20. ECR has him at 23. I've also got Jonathan Williams in this range, back-to-back 100-yard games. The matchup against Tennessee is not great, but it's been a lot better lately, so I've got him at RB21. Rounding out my top 24 backs, Devin Singletary, ECR 20. Bo Scarborough's ECR 29. I've got him as 23. Everyone looks at Chicago and thinks, man, that's a horrible matchup. Well, yeah, if you're a quarterback or a wide receiver, but for tight ends and running backs, it's actually been a pretty good matchup, and Scarborough's been, got 18 touches last week against Washington, went for 98 yards. I would imagine that it's going to be fairly similar against Chicago this week. And then Tariq Cohen is my number 24 running back. And this is interesting. He's all the way down at number 36 for ECR. And I'm not really following. Like, sure, he wasn't great at the beginning of the season because they weren't giving him the ball. Last 2 weeks, they've been giving him the ball even more than they did last year when he was an top 15 running back. And now he gets the best single matchup for pass-catching running backs in Detroit. I've got Tariq Cohen in my top 24 guys. All right, so outside my top 24, these are some plays that, you could use in your flex if you need to. Sony Michel against Houston, not a great matchup, but he's likely to find his way into the end zone at Sony Michel and the Patriots. Benny Snell, this is assuming James Conner's out. Benny Snell would be a solid flex play. And then Tevin Coleman, this is an interesting one, right? Because ECR has him all the way up at 18. I'm not seeing it against Baltimore. Like, sure, Tevin Coleman had a great game against Carolina, 36 fantasy points. What's he done besides that? 6, 16, 12, 6, 4, 7, 6, 11. It's not very good, guys, and that's a lot of good matchups. Washington, he went for 6 points. That's an incredible matchup. Arizona, he went for 4 points, 23 yards on 12 carries. He's split in the backfield with Raheem Mostert or Matt Breida, whoever's healthy. So Tevin Coleman is not a must-start against Baltimore in my mind. You can play him in the flex, however. Darius Geis, because he gets a great matchup against Carolina, I think is a solid play this week. Austin Eckler against Denver. ECR likes him a lot better at 22. I've got him at 29. Yeah, he's had some big games, but he's been so inconsistent because some weeks they give him 12 targets like we saw last week against Kansas City. Some weeks they give him 2 targets like we saw against Oakland. So I'm not sure which one it's going to be, but I don't think that he's reliable enough to be a must-start. Kenyon Drake, I've got him at 30. He's a solid play. And then James White, Kareem Hunt against Pittsburgh, not a great play. Damian Williams, I don't even know if he's the starter. It might be LaShawn McCoy. Latavius Murray, if you're desperate, you can pick up. And then Carlos Hyde. You see him over there on the right. I'm recommending him as a sit. Now, ECR has him at 28, so they say, yeah, you can play Carlos Hyde, and yeah, he's going to get a lot of touches, but we're talking about going up against New England. Like, how good was Dak Prescott before we went up against New England? And this is the case for so many quarterbacks and running backs, wide receivers throughout the season. This is one of the best defenses in NFL history. I'm not playing Carlos Hyde against New England. I'm sorry, guys. A couple other guys, if you're desperate. Rashad Penny, maybe we've got something here. Jamal Williams, LaShawn McCoy might be the starter coming off the bye. Raheem Mostert, again, was solid last week. It's pretty ugly out there once you get past this range. So let's move on over to the wide receiver position. Let me pull that up here. And you'll see on your right-hand side, I've got two starts here. D.D. Westbrook and Russell Gage. We'll get to them in a moment. First, let's start up at the very top, however, with a couple guys that I'm getting more questions about. Tyler Lockett was awful last week. Yeah, that's true. He was a decoy. But against Minnesota, this is a better matchup. I would imagine with an extra week, he'll be a little bit better. I mean, he was healthy enough to actually play, so I would imagine that this week he's going to be, continuing to get the snaps. He'll get more than 2 targets this week. Tyler Lockett is still a solid start. Adam Thielen coming off the injury, assuming he does play, I'm definitely playing Adam Thielen. He hasn't been as good this year, but, we're talking about Adam Thielen. Like, if he's active, you're playing him, right? Amari Cooper was shut out last week. Again, that was against Stephon Gilmore. And yes, he gets Tre'Davious White this week. I'm assuming they're going to shadow him with Tre'Davious White. But there's a big difference between Stephon Gilmore and Tre'Davious White. I'm still playing Amari Cooper. He's in my top 20. Amari Cooper, Adam Thielen, Tyler Lockett, they're all in ECR top 24 as well. So everyone in the industry is recommending these guys. It's not just me. Devontae Parker is a must start this week. I've got him at 23. DK Metcalf is all the way up there, ECR 25. I've got him at 24. Michael Gallup, yeah, he's going up against Buffalo, but he's not going to be shadowed by Tre'Davious White, so he's actually got a pretty good matchup. You can play him. Sammy Watkins, this is going to make some of you guys cringe because he's been so bad, but we're talking about someone who averages 8 targets per game. He's got Patrick Mahomes as his quarterback. He's going up against Oakland. If you're not starting Sammy Watkins, cut him, and I'll pick him up. I'll be glad to start Sammy Watkins. I've got him, ECR has him at 29. I've got him at 26. Rounding out my top 30, I think Robert Woods at Arizona is a good play. Kenny Golladay against Chicago. Yeah, he's been rough the past couple weeks. Chicago's a good defense, but I'm still playing Kenny Golladay. He's a wide receiver 3 for me, but I'm still playing him. Terry McLaurin got 12 targets last week. He gets Carolina this week. He's a start. Christian McCaffrey against the Rams. I'm playing him. He just gets too many targets to sit. Rounding out my wide receiver 3 range, Deebo Samuel is again a good play. D.D. Westbrook against Tampa. Tyrell Williams, I don't love him this week, but he gets Kansas City. And they're going to be playing from behind, so I think he gets plenty of targets. Emmanuel Sanders, assuming he's healthy against Baltimore, I've got him at 34. Marvin Jones against Chicago, I've got him at 35. And then Jamison Crowder, who's all the way up at ECR 23. And yeah, you can play Jamison Crowder. Hold on a second. Sorry about that. I don't especially love the play. I've got him as a low-end wide receiver 3, but this is someone who's been so volatile throughout the season. Like last week, he had a smash matchup against Oakland. What'd he do? He went for 2 receptions, 18 yards. That's the kind of thing that you can get from Jamison Crowder. More often than not, it does work out, but he's had some real bad bust weeks. 1 standard point against Philadelphia in week 5, 3 against New England, 4 against the Browns, 2 against Jacksonville, 2 last week against Oakland. So play Jamison Crowder at your own risk, guys. I'd rather play somebody like D.D. Westbrook if you have the opportunity, Terry McLaurin. So just outside my wide receiver 3s, these are guys that you should use in your flex, assuming you don't have 3 or 4 better wide receivers. Brandon Cooks is in that range. He'll be back this week. Curtis Samuel going up against Washington, pretty good matchup. Sterling Shepard is someone you see there I've got as a sit. Now, when I sent this over yesterday, I did have Sterling Shepard as a sit. Now, I've moved him up quite a bit because Golden Tate may be out. If Golden Tate plays, I've got Sterling Shepard outside of my top 40, and so yeah, I would sit him. If Golden Tate is out, Sterling Shepard's going to move up to about 35, so just keep an eye on that situation. Golden Tate I've got right behind him at 40. Same kind of thing. If he's active, I'm playing him. If he's not active, obviously you sit him. If you're really desperate to pick someone up, I need a wide receiver, I think you can start Auden Tate this week. ECR has him down at 61. I've got him at 41. So AJ Green's likely going to be out. Tyler Boyd is going to be shadowed by Brian Poole, by far the best cornerback for the Jets. And then you've got John Ross still out. So Auden Tate, I think we get 6, 7, 8 targets from Andy Dalton, who's actually been pretty good when he's been the starter this year. And they get the Jets. maybe the best matchup in all of football for opposing wide receivers. So Auden Tate getting 8 targets against the Jets from Andy Dalton. Yeah, sign me up. I'll start him in the flex. A couple other guys in this range. Tyler Boyd, I don't love him this week. ECR has him at 30. He's going up against Poole, I mentioned. So you can use him in the flex. I'd prefer Tate, though. I'd prefer D.D. Westbrook. A.J. Brown is hey, I'm going for a home run, so I need 15 fantasy points. Who can get it for me? A.J. Brown could. He could also put up a stinker and get 2 or 3. So play him at your own risk. He's a lottery option. Will Fuller, same kind of thing. ECR has him at 36. I'm not playing him against the Patriots. Are you kidding me? You can do it if you want. I'm not going to recommend it, though. Not putting my name behind that one. And then Russell Gage, if you really need to pick someone up, I do prefer Auden Tate, but Russell Gage right now, if Julio Jones is out, I've got him at 45. If Jones is out, I'm moving him up into my top 40 without a doubt. I'm not playing Marquise Brown against San Francisco, Mike Conley against Denver. Chris Conley's not a bad play. Anthony Miller's not a bad play against Detroit. Chris Conley gets Tampa. Jacoby Myers, if you want to take a shot in the dark, he's not a bad play against Houston. Their secondary's not been great. N'Keal Harry, same kind of thing. Demaryius Thomas against Cincinnati. There's a lot of options because nobody's on bye. Darius Slayton against Green Bay. There's so many options. If you need a wide receiver, hit me up on Twitter. I'll help you find the right guy in your league, or you can upload to my playbook at fantasypros.com/myplaybook, and it's going to give you waiver wire advice, tell you who the best guys available are, top streamers, and everything along those lines. All right, so let's see here. I'll get to am I going quarterback first? Yeah, quarterback first, and I've got Dak Prescott, you'll see there as a sit. I've got so many questions about Dak Prescott, like, hold on a second. I saw your rankings. Are you seriously telling me to start Nick Foles in a must-win fantasy matchup over Dak Prescott? Not only am I telling you that, I'm telling you it's not even close, guys. I've got Nick Foles QB 10. I've got Dak Prescott QB 18 against Buffalo. Like, Dak Prescott, let's look at his matchups this season. New York Giants. He crushed them because it's the Giants. Washington, 29 points because it's Washington. Miami, 24 points. Another great matchup. The Jets, 18 points. Great matchup. Philadelphia, when everybody was hurt, crushed them because it was Philadelphia when everybody was hurt. The Giants again. Detroit again. He's had by far the easiest schedule of any quarterback in football, and of course he was great. But let's look at what he's done when he doesn't play a bottom 10 secondary. 9 points against New Orleans. 8 points against the Patriots. Okay, he played Green Bay. That was a tough matchup, and he was great in that game. 463 yards, 44 pass attempts. He also had 3 interceptions. Like, Dak Prescott's good, but he's like mediocre good. He's not great. We're about to see how good he is against New England. He was horrible. Buffalo, a really tough matchup. Chicago next week. The Rams in week 15. I'm telling you guys, you can cut Dak Prescott. I'm not going to recommend him as a start the rest of the season. And if you need a streamer, the ones that I love here, Sam Darnold at number 9. He's been great the past 3 weeks. I've recommended him as a streamer, and I'm recommending him again against Cincinnati. This is a quality quarterback in Sam Darnold. He wasn't great when he came off of mono, because no duh, like, you know how hard it is to play sports after you've been like debilitated for an entire month, and he got crushed by the Patriots like everybody else. Besides that, he's been really good. He gets Cincinnati this week, a great matchup. And now that Andy Dalton's back, it might actually be an up-tempo, a high-scoring affair, and Sam Darnold might throw the ball more than what we've seen the last 3 weeks, 30, 29 pass attempts. I'm expecting 35 to 40 from Sam Darnold this week, and against Cincinnati, that's enough to make him a top 10 quarterback. Even against Jacksonville, I've got Jameis Winston in my top 10. Didn't even really think twice about it. Matt Ryan's been playing bad, but I'm using him against the Saints in a home game, in the Dome. Josh Allen, yeah, he's going up against Dallas. So what? He's going to get, 50, 60 rushing yards and a rushing touchdown. So I'm playing him. You look at what he's done this year. He put up 12 points against the Patriots. That's actually pretty good. Besides that, he's got at least 17 fantasy points in every game. Even against Denver last week, a horrible matchup, he put up 20 fantasy points. I'm definitely using him against Dallas this week. He's in my top 12 as well. And then this is where it gets really shady. Deshaun Watson gets the Patriots, but it's Deshaun Watson. I've got him at QB 12. I've got Allen at 11, Watson at 12, Nick Foles at 10. If I have Deshaun Watson and I need to get into the fantasy playoffs, you better believe it. I'm starting Nick Foles over Deshaun Watson. I'm starting Sam Darnold over Deshaun Watson. This is not hyperbole. This is not a test. I'm telling you guys, if you want to win your games, Nick Foles against Tampa throwing 40 pass attempts, Heck yeah, sign me up. Tom Brady has a good matchup against Houston this week. He's throwing a lot of passes as well. Now, yeah, he's got the elbow injury. He's got some injuries to his wide receivers. This isn't the same as playing Baltimore, Philadelphia, Dallas the past 3 weeks. This is Houston. Houston has a bad secondary. They're a little bit banged up as well. So I think Brady's a solid play. I'd still rather go to Deshaun Watson, and I'd still rather pick up Nick Foles, Sam Darnold. Jared Goff's not a bad play if you need a streamer, but again, I like Foles and Darnold a little better. Jared Goff goes up against Arizona. Very good matchup. He's got all his wide receivers back as well. Cooper Kupp, Robert Woods, Brandon Cooks. Now, Gerald Everett might be out. We'll get to that here in a little bit. And then 2 other quarterbacks I don't mind so much. Carson Wentz against Miami, great matchup, obviously. He wasn't good last week, but and he's a little bit banged up. But this is the best matchup he's seen since week 3 when he was dominant against... he played the Jets in week 5 and wasn't very good. He was dominant against Detroit, dominant against Atlanta, dominant against Washington. He's at a opposite of Dak Prescott. Really hard schedule. Dak's had a really easy schedule. And now Wentz for the rest of the season gets Miami, the Jets, Washington, Dallas. That's a really good match, really good schedule rest of the season. I'd rather own Carson Wentz rest of the season than Dak Prescott. I'm not kidding. And then Ryan Tannehill. It's funny, but he has been the number 2 fantasy quarterback since he took over as a starter. Obviously, Lamar Jackson's number 1. Josh Allen's number 3. Ryan Tannehill is number 2, guys. And Indianapolis is really good against the run, so you almost have to pass against them. Last 2 weeks, he had 19 pass attempts, 18 pass attempts, because they didn't need to pass the ball. They were playing from the head. And he still was great in those 2 weeks, averaging 25 fantasy points. This week, good matchup. I think he throws the ball 30 times. Ryan Tannehill is not a bad play at all. I'm not starting Kirk Cousins. He's been great, but he gets Seattle, a slow-paced team, and Kirk Cousins just doesn't throw the ball enough for me to start him. Again, I mentioned I'm not starting Dak Prescott. I've got him at number 18. ECR has him at number 9. Everyone else is obviously a sit for me. All right, tight end position, you'll see I've got Gerald Everett. I had him as a start. Now, if he's out, I'm not playing Gerald Everett. He hyperextended his knee on Monday night. It was an incredible matchup against Arizona. If Everett is out, his backup Tyler Higbee becomes suddenly a top 14 play, which is where I've got him in my rankings right now because I'm expecting Everett to be out. So forget what you're seeing about Everett being a start this week. I'm not expecting him to play. I'm expecting Tyler Higbee to be the starter. And so if you need a streamer, he's my guy this week. I don't think you can pick up Ryan Griffin. He's owned in most leagues. He gets Cincinnati. If you can, great. He's a better play than Higbee. I don't think you can pick up Jack Doyle. He's owned in most leagues. If you can, pick him up because Eric Ebron's on IR. I think he's a great play. Dallas Goedert's still available in some leagues. I've got him at tight end 8. Tags has him all the way up at tight end 5, I believe, because he gets Miami. Greg Olsen, Jared Cook, those are obvious starts, but maybe they're available in some of your leagues. I like Goddard, Olsen, and Cook all better than Mark Andrews this week, who's going up against San Francisco. And Mark Andrews, yeah, he's had some big games this season, but you look at his last four games, 2 receptions, 4 receptions, 2 receptions. He had a big game mixed in there against Cincinnati, but again, it's Cincinnati. Besides week 1, 2 against Miami, Arizona, smash matchups. And then Cincinnati in week 10, Mark Andrews hasn't really been very good. He gets San Francisco this week. You kind of got to play him, but if you've got an option to get Olsen, Cook, or Goddard, I'd much rather play any of them than Mark Andrews. Now, running out my top 12, I've got Jacob Hollister against Minnesota just because he's got Russell Wilson as his quarterback. Noah Fant's getting a lot of targets, but he's playing the Chargers, so I've got him outside my top 12 for the first time in a month. He's my tight end 13. Like, you can play him if you need to. If you can't pick up Higbee, if you can't pick up Griffin, Doyle, Dallas Goedert, Greg Olsen, Jared Cook, TJ Hawkinson against Chicago, I don't think is a bad play this week. Now, he's in a little bit of a timeshare, but this has been a good matchup for tight ends this year. Mike Gesicki is not a bad play either. We saw him get in the end zone last week. He's getting a lot of targets. He's getting a lot of air yards. I'd rather play him than pick up Kyle Rudolph against Seattle. Like, Kyle Rudolph just doesn't get enough targets or receptions. He's a touchdown or bust guy. And yeah, maybe he does get in the end zone against Seattle. It's a good matchup, but I'd rather pick up one of these guys like Higbee in an incredible matchup against Arizona, or Noah Fant, who's getting a ton of targets week to week. If you're really desperate, deeper league, you can't pick up one of these guys. Tags mentioned him on yesterday's show, and I am all aboard. Any tight end for Nick Foles is a good play. Nick O'Leary going up against Tampa with Nick Foles. He caught 4 passes, picked up off the street. Miami cut him, and then Jacksonville signed him and used him because they're out 3 tight ends now. Nick O'Leary is getting a ton of snaps, running a ton of routes. He gets Nick Foles, who loves tight ends. He gets a great matchup against Tampa. He's not a bad play. I've got him at tight end 20, but if you need a streamer, you can go that direction. Now let me go defense really quick. There's a ton of great streamers you can pick up. Philly against Miami. The Jets against Cincinnati. That's 1 and 3 in my rankings this week. Green Bay against the Giants. They're number 4. Obviously, you're playing the Bears and Patriots. You're playing the Steelers. You're playing the Ravens. Another good streamer, Carolina against Washington and Dwayne Haskins. In fact, they're ECR number 1. I've got them at 6 this week, but they're a really good play. The Los Angeles Rams against Arizona, I think, are a decent play. Cleveland against Pittsburgh's third-string quarterback. Jacksonville against Tampa Bay and Jameis Winston. The New Orleans Saints against Matt Ryan, who's actually been interception-prone. So I'd rather play a lot of them than Buffalo against Dallas, San Francisco against Baltimore, Denver against Los Angeles Chargers, who I think a lot of you guys are still carrying. So let's get to the Q&A here. Let me switch my slide. Sorry, guys, my voice is like running out. I just got done recording the DFS podcast with Tags. It's just been like a smashed week trying to get all the content in 3 days, and we're almost there. We're almost to Thanksgiving with all the desserts and everything. I don't really care about the turkey and mashed potatoes. Just get me to those dessert plates. I'm pretty pumped up. If you're enjoying today's show, if you don't mind hitting that like button, it tells my bosses you guys are enjoying it. And again, if I don't get to your questions, I'm going to get to as many of them as I possibly can here. I know it's a really important week. Ask me questions on Twitter at BobbyFantasyPro, or you can just go and get my answers immediately. Check out my start-sit rankings. I have them pinned to the top of my Twitter. In fact, I actually don't think I do now. I'll do that after today's show, but you can go reference those at any point throughout the week. I update it every couple of hours. Guys, I'm going to be honest with you. I'm going to be doing some work on Thanksgiving. I'll be paying attention to all this and doing updates throughout the day. So don't worry. If you're wondering, well, have you considered this? Have you updated for this? The answer is yes, I have done that. This is my job. During football season, I spend a ton of time doing it. And so, yes, my rankings are updated. You can get answers right away on that front. And by the way, if you guys aren't already subscribed, we've got more live streams than just this one. Tags does one on Sundays all by himself. He's going to answer a ton of questions for an hour, give you injury updates leading up to kickoff. We do one together on Tuesdays. Now, this week was a little bit thrown off. We did everything a little bit early, but on Tuesdays, we'll do one together talking waiver wire. We also have all kinds of videos that come out. If you subscribe, you'll get notifications for all those. You can schedule notifications to remind you when the live streams are coming up. Now, let's get to your Q&A here. Hold on just a second. Let me pull it up. All right, let's see. And hopefully I didn't skip over any. Sometimes YouTube forwards me on so that I don't see the first one. So let's see here. All right. Would you rather pick up Snell or Penny? Well, it really depends, Derek. If you need to win this week, I'm playing Snell over Penny, and it's not even close. If you are looking long-term upside, Snell's losing his job when Connor comes back, right? So there's a chance Penny is the starter moving forward for Seattle. If that's the case, I mean, we saw last week what he can do. This is a great running offense. Penny's a talented football player. He's not anywhere near as good as Chris Carson. Let's not kid ourselves. But if Pete Carroll just decides, you know what, I'm done with all these fumbles. Chris Carson, you're in the doghouse. There's a chance Rashad Penny is a high-end RB2 every single week. So it just depends on what you need, Derek. You need to win this week, Snell. If you are already in the playoffs, I would go Penny. All right, sit 1, Robert Woods, DK Metcalf, Odell Beckham, Christian Kirk. I like the way that this question is framed. It's really simple. If you write something longer, it's harder for me to get to as many of them. Half PPR, sit 1, and then he gives me 4 names. I'm sitting Christian Kirk out of that group. I've got Metcalf in my top 25. I've got Woods in my top 30. Beckham's in my top 15, and Kirk is just outside the top 30. Don't love his matchup this week. All right, Matt Ryan, Sam Darnold, or Nick Foles. I've got, they're all 8, 9, 10 in my rankings. Matt Ryan is 8, Darnold is 9, Foles is 10, Neil, so I would go with Matt Ryan. Where do you rank McLaurin? He's in my top 30. He's a solid wide receiver 3 play. I love the guy's talent. If Dwayne Haskins could have hit him last week, I mean, he cost him 9 fantasy points right there on a 25-yard touchdown. Wide open, absolutely wide open. Burnt Darius Slade, one of the better cornerbacks in football. This is a really good young football player. If Dwayne Haskins improves or if they go out and get a better quarterback, I love Terry McLaurin for Dynasty, but this year he's held back a little bit. All right, Darnold or Cousins? I'm going with Darnold this week, Spencer. Pick 3 running backs in a standard league. All right, so we got Carson, Snell, Damian Williams, Mixon, Scarborough. So I'm going to start with Carson. Right behind him is Mixon, and then it's really close between the next 3. I'm going with Scarborough barely over Snell. And then Damian Williams is a little bit more distant. I think LaShawn McCoy is going to be the starter. He played twice as many snaps in the game before their bye. And Damian Williams, had some fumble problems. LaShawn McCoy was coming off the injury. In fact, he was pulled from that game. Now that they've had the bye, I think he's going to be plugged in as the starter. All right, Eric wants to know, Washington, I'm assuming this is James Washington. Christian Kirk, Dede Westbrook, if Julio sits. I'm going Dede way over the other two. Christian Kirk would be my number 2. All right, let's see here. Start Cooper Kupp or Alshon Jeffrey in half PPR. It's definitely Cooper Kupp for me. James White, Damian Williams, or Kenyon Drake. This is a close one, but for me, I'm going Kenyon Drake, barely over the other two. Luther wants to know Lamar Jackson or Patrick Mahomes. Holy cow, he's got both of them. All right, I'm going Patrick Mahomes this week. He's my QB1. Let me actually check here. I'm going to do this. I do this every week. Starter sit. So you can just type in starter sit, or you can go to FantasyPros. Actually, who should I start? You can go to fantasypros.com/NFL/start. I'm going to plug them in. Let's see what the industry thinks about Lamar Jackson face Patrick Mahomes. And this is a tool that you guys can use very easily. And it's going to tell us, let's see, we've got 62 experts who have already put in their rankings. This is crazy because Lamar Jackson is by far the number 1 fantasy quarterback rest of the season. But in the matchups they have, Lamar Jackson against San Francisco, Patrick Mahomes against Oakland, 55 of 62. So that's 89% are saying Patrick Mahomes. Let's go on down and look at the most accurate experts so far at ranking quarterbacks. We've got Brad Evans, number 2. The number 1 expert so far has not put in their rankings yet, but Brad Evans has Mahomes at 1, Jackson at 2. Mike Randall from Betting Pros, number 1 for Mahomes, number 2 for Jackson. In fact, everybody in the top 10 has Patrick Mahomes over Lamar Jackson, so take that for what it's worth. Let's get to some more questions here. Got probably about 10 more minutes, so we should be able to get through, if I cruise, maybe 30 questions or so. All right, Darnold or Cousins, I'm going Darnold. Kyler Murray or Sam Darnold, I'm going Kyler Murray over Darnold. Marvin Jones, Alshon Jeffrey, Curtis Samuel, Miles Sanders in the flex. You need to play 2, and it's full PPR. So let's see here. I've got Miles Sanders for sure. Of the last 3, Jones, Jeffrey, Samuel, let me pull up my rankings. And this is for PPR. So Marvin Jones, I've got at 35. Alshon, I'm not expecting to play. ECR has him at 68. If he does play, he would be higher than Marvin Jones. And then who was the last one here? We had Curtis Samuel. So I would expect that Alshon's going to be out, and I would play Marvin Jones. If Alshon plays, he's the guy. I've got Curtis Samuel at 38, so he would be third of this group if Alshon plays. All right, seeing a lot of repeat questions in here. Christian Kirk, Devontae Parker, Kenny Galladay, Miles Sanders, Tevin Coleman, Chris Carson, Jonathan Williams or Rojo, you need to pick 3. Neiled, all of these guys are really, really close, so I don't blame you for asking about all of them. I need to pick 3, though, so I'm definitely going Miles Sanders. I'm going Chris Carson, number 2. And this is full PPR, right? So I'm going Devontae Parker over Kenny Galladay, and I'm also going Devontae Parker over Tevin Coleman. So for me, it's this order. Miles Sanders, Chris Carson, Devontae Parker. All right, Kirk Cousins or Tannehill PPR. I've got Tannehill David by just a few spots. Standard, Benny Snell, Jamison Crowder, Darius Geis in the flex. Let's see here. This is standard. This is really, really tough. I'm going with Benny Snell barely over both of them. All 3 of these guys are so close in standard. If it was PPR, I'd go Jamison Crowder, but standard, I'm going Benny Snell. All right, if Damian Williams is out, you going Shady McCoy or Tyler Boyd? I'm going Shady McCoy. Even if Damian Williams is not out, I'm going Shady McCoy in this one. Unless it's full PPR, then I'm going Tyler Boyd. I don't love Tyler Boyd's matchup against Brian Poole. It's the only bad matchup on the entire field for Cincinnati, but it's a bad one. So I've got Auden Tate over Tyler Boyd. A.J. Brown or Deebo Samuel this week? I'm going Deebo. Jacob Hollister or Greg Olsen? I'm going Greg Olsen. Darnold or Cousins? PPR. Doesn't really matter for quarterbacks. I think I already answered that one. It's Darnold for me. Actually, I've seen that one like 5 times already. Sammy Watkins or Robert Woods this week. This one is so close. I'm going back to starter sit. All right, so let's see here. We got Robert Woods, and who was the other one? Robert Woods and Sammy Watkins. I'll just tell you, I've got Robert Woods one spot higher than Sammy Watkins. Now, I'm going to audit myself to see what the rest of the industry thinks. I do this all the time when I'm building my rankings just to make sure I'm not missing out on something. So Sammy Watkins, 59% of the analysts say Sammy Watkins. 41% say Robert Woods. Let's look at the most accurate wide receiver experts so far this season. All right. Dylan Chapin of White Wolf Sports has Watkins at 30, Woods at 29, so really close. Andy Holloway, the fantasy footballers, 28 for Watkins, 32 for Woods. Joe Bond, 24 for Watkins, 36 for Woods. I'm looking at the rest of the guys in the top 10. All of them have Watkins over Woods, so it looks like Watkins over Woods is the play. I've got Woods one spot higher. I'm not flinching. Like, Watkins is getting a ton of targets. He goes up against Oakland. I already mentioned I like Patrick Mahomes even over Lamar Jackson this week. But Robert Woods has a great matchup in Arizona. Robert Woods against these horrible teams has been a lot better. And Jared Goff's been a lot better against these horrible teams. And Robert Woods has 20 targets in his last 2 games. It's really close, though, guys. All right, let's see here. A.J. Brown or Terry McLaurin? I'm going Terry McLaurin. Which 2 should I play? Marvin Jones, Calvin Ridley, Will Fuller, or Brandon Cooks? So I'm sitting Will Fuller against New England. That's a gimme for me. I'm definitely playing Calvin Ridley. So it comes down to Marvin Jones or Brandon Cooks. I've got Marvin Jones 2 spots higher, Dante. All right, should I sit Mark Andrews? Thomas, it depends on who you have. I don't think there's anyone you can pick up who's better than Andrews. If you can get Gerald Everett and he plays, I'd play him over Mark Andrews. But yeah, I think you're probably playing Mark Andrews. Don't love the matchup. All right, PPR, you need a wide receiver and a flex between Lockett, Ridley, Chubb. Holy cow, you're sitting one of these guys. If I'm sitting one of them, I'm sitting Tyler Lockett this week, just because we don't exactly know if he's going to be 100%. Last week he had 2 targets. I think he's a good play, but over Calvin Ridley, no. Over Nick Chubb, definitely no. Rest of the season, Wentz or Rodgers, I'm going Aaron Rodgers. Brady or Matt Ryan this week. I like Brady's matchup, but I'm going with Matt Ryan. Just because Brady's a little bit banged up, his wide receivers are banged up, his offensive line's not very good. It's going to be a high-scoring game. I would imagine with Matt Ryan playing at home in the Dome against New Orleans. All right, next one. David says Sutton, Boyd, or Kirk PPR. I'm going with Cortland Sutton. I don't love the matchup, but he's the play. All right, Sandro says Ridley or Jamison Crowder. It's definitely Ridley for me. Start Evan Ingram, Jack Doyle, or Ryan Griffin. I don't think Ingram's going to play. If he does, he's the start. If not, Ryan Griffin is the play barely over Jack Doyle. All right, should I bench David Montgomery and use Sterling Shepard at flex? No, I would go with David Montgomery. All right, Darnold, Foles, or Ryan. I think I already answered this one, but for me, it's the same order. Ryan, Darnold, Foles that you have them listed. Let's see, Carson Wentz or Sam Darnold. I'm going to Sam Darnold. Pick 3, PPR. Let's do about 5 or 6 more questions. Pick 3, PPR. Mike Evans, yes. Keenan Allen, yes. Michael Gallup, yes, over D.D. Westbrook. I like D.D. Westbrook's matchup. Michael Gallup does not have a bad matchup against Buffalo. Buffalo is a bad overall matchup because of Tre'Davious White, but he's going to be on Amari Cooper. Michael Gallup is a solid play, and I like him a little bit more than D.D. Westbrook. All right, let's see here. I need a flex. Options are Parker, Jonathan Williams, Miles Sanders, Christian Kirk. You're in a good situation with all 4 of these options. Now, among them this week, I love Devontae Parker. I like Jonathan Williams plenty. Christian Kirk's number 4 on this list. He's a solid play. But Miles Sanders is the pick between these 4. All right, next up, Devin Singletary, Chris Carson, Kenyon Drake, John Brown. You need 2 in a standard league. In standard, I'm going John Brown. And I'm going Chris Carson barely over Singletary and over Kenyon Drake by quite a bit. All right, let's see here. Olsen or Goddard. I'm playing Goddard. Barely over Olsen, Spencer. Drop Cohen for Rashad Penny. Man, I mean, to play this week, I'm playing Cohen over Rashad, and it's not even close. Now, if you're already in the playoffs, Cohen's maybe your RB4, you're not planning on playing him. I think Penny has a chance to actually help your fantasy team, whereas Cohen isn't going to. Now, if Cohen's your RB2 or your RB3, I'd play it safe and just keep Cohen with the way they've been using him. All right, Sutton, Boyd, or Kirk, PPR. I'm going Sutton. Nick Foles or Nick Foles. Nick Foles is a good streamer this week, guys. I can't believe I'm saying it. 95 pass attempts in the 2 weeks since he's been back. All right, Hollister or Waller. PPR, I'm an underdog. I'm still going Waller. All right, let's see here. 2 more questions. You need 2. Chris Carson, Miles Sanders, Singletary. I'm benching Singletary of that bunch. I hate to bench him because I like the Singletary play this week, but Yeah, it's Sanders and Carson are the starters. All right, let's see here. I'm going to try to get one that's not a repeat because there's been a lot of them today. David Montgomery or Tyler Boyd, half PPR. I don't like Boyd's matchup. I'm going with David Montgomery. Guys, I'm sorry I couldn't get to all the questions. I tried to cruise through them this week, get to as many of them as I can. I'm going to tell you guys really quick. If you're playing on DFS, I'm pulling open my cheat sheet right now. If you're playing on DraftKings or FanDuel, you can and should use all of Zeke, Kamara, Thomas. Now, you're going to have to spend down, but there's some good options to spend down on this week. Andy Dalton is an excellent play for DFS this weekend. Now, he's not for the Thanksgiving slate, but they've made it so cheap. I don't know if they're trying to like appeal to people to think, hey, I can get all these stars in the lineup, but you got to use Kamara, Zeke, Thomas. Anthony Miller is going to help you afford that. The tight ends are really cheap this week. You can go all the way down to Dawson Knox is not a bad play. Defenses are really cheap. There's plenty of cheap quarterbacks in the slate as well, but don't forget, you got to use Kamara, Zeke, and Thomas. Otherwise, I believe you're flushing money down the toilet. Guys, that's all for today's show. Again, you can check out my Twitter at BobbyFantasyPro. I've got my rankings posted. I'll pin it right after this. My quick grades are already out. Ask me questions on Twitter or to get quick answers, go to those rankings. Really appreciate you guys watching. Hope you enjoy Thanksgiving with your family and enjoy your football.